don't know how to intro.
Do you want me to intro for you? Or do you want to intro it? It's your channel.
I'm so shy. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is...
That's a brilliant intro, guys. Brilliant.
It sounds so nasally.
Guys, welcome to Chloe's channel. Okay, if you came from my channel, hi again.
You
Hi.
definitely came from Jay's channel.
Yeah, nobody came to Chloe because she's trash.
My upload schedule is inspired by
Vitamin C.
Calix and Wilney and Jay Swingler.
My channel's pretty shit, I ain't gonna lie.
So we've got some more conspiracies over here.
So mine is called Project Rainbow.
Oh, it sounds cute.
It's really deep and it's like not as bright and happy as the title makes it sound. Do you want to go first? Then I'll go second.
I'm going to go first. Guys, you'll have to bear with me because there's a lot of information and I'm dyslexic.
Chloe's very clever, it's just she has dyslexia and sometimes she sounds dumb. And the fact that she's blonde, yeah, doesn't help this image. Like, people call her a blonde bimbo.
No one calls me a blonde bimbo.
Look at the top comment of this video.
That's me. That's my notes, hang on. So, my conspiracy is about Robert Francis Kennedy. He was JFK's younger brother. He was a lawyer and politician up until his assassination in June 1968. In his politician-y career...
Politician-y.
In his career as a politician, he was passionate about fighting for civil rights, human rights, social justice, getting rid of all the criminal organisations. JFK was assassinated and Robert Kennedy carried on fighting to be a politician.
So John F. Kennedy was killed first?
Yeah,
and then
he was
his brother
killed,
was still alive?
And
okay.
Robert Kennedy's
I'm
just
following.
He's just going and he wants to be president. So, Robert Kennedy was assassinated on June the 6th, 1968. The night he was assassinated, he was in California and it had just been announced that he was in the lead in California in the local voting things.
I love you so much, man. You don't know where to start now, do you?
He was in the lead to become president in California. They just announced it. He did a speech in this place in California, in this house, and he was in the ballroom. As he went to leave the ballroom, his bodyguard said to him, "Don't walk through the kitchen." Anyway, it was really busy and there were lots of people there, so he ended up walking through a kitchen passageway. As he was walking through, there was obviously lots of people wanting to meet him, and he stopped and shook hands with a local busboy called Juan.
I read about this yesterday as well. A busboy is a guy who clears tables in like a cafeteria or like a restaurant and that. As
he stopped to shake hands with him, he was shot by a 24-year-old Palestinian called Sirhan. He was shot 3 times and collapsed. Juan Romero, the busboy, grabbed him on the floor. He was holding his head, placed a rosary in Robert Kennedy's hand. All Robert Kennedy said was, "Is everyone else okay?" The ambulance turns up. Within 30 minutes, he's taken to hospital and he dies in the early hours of the next morning. The shots were fired from behind. He had one shot that went in the back of his right ear. Is that my right ear?
Yeah.
In the back of his right ear, and bullet fragments were in his brain. He was shot twice in the back of the armpit. One came out through his chest and the other one got lodged up in his brain.
He needs that antiperspirant, yeah. Linked
There's
dry.
2 conspiracy theories for this. One was that it was not a lone gunman, that Sirhan was not acting on his own, that there might have been another person involved. The position where Sirhan was standing was too far back. He was several feet away. Most of the reports say that the bullet behind his ear, the shot was about 1 inch away. So he was shot from 1 inch away.
That's close.
But
That's like this far away.
Yeah, Sirhan was several feet away. Other people who believe that he may not have been acting alone were Sirhan's attorney, who said, well, obviously he's going to say this, but he said Sirhan was too far away. His position, it wasn't possible for him to have shot so close behind the ear. Other people who also think that he wasn't acting alone were the LAPD, who were investigating it at the time, had a lot of trouble accounting for the paths of the bullets. Later on, after the initial investigation, 2 additional bullet holes were found in a door jamb. Because this had been found after the initial investigation, most of the evidence had been destroyed. They couldn't use this as evidence after the investigation. The LAPD did take this to the district attorney, saying we want to reinvestigate it because we found these 2 additional bullet holes. You know, this could be a lot bigger than what we think it is. The district attorney turned down this appeal and said it's not in the interest of the public to open another investigation, and also said that the main reason they wouldn't reopen it is because it would confuse the public.
Huh?
So they think if he wasn't acting alone, people involved could have been people for the US government who didn't want him in power because he was fighting so much for civil rights and human rights. He was also fighting, like I mentioned earlier, for fighting against criminal organisations and mafia. Also, another thing, the fact that they believe that Robert Kennedy was shot by a lone gunman in a crowded place and his brother a few years earlier was also shot by a lone gunman is really fishy. The next theory that people go down, and which is what Sirhan actually appeals for in court, saying that he was hypnotised. He has no recollection of the night that he shot Robert Kennedy.
That's fucked.
He believed that he was in a firing range. When they were investigating into Sirhan, they found diaries written by him which were filled with obsessive messages saying about killing Robert Kennedy. Also, there were messages, and they were written and scribbled really hard, about it had to be done before or on the 5th of June 1968. He was actually assassinated on the 6th of June.
He was one day late, he was getting the sack after that.
What's also weird about this is if someone is that passionate about killing the president and they've got all these diaries of it being written down, would Sirhan not have been more proud? If he's that crazy, would he have not been more proud that he killed him? Do you know what I mean? Rather than saying, oh, it wasn't me. If you're that crazy and you've got this all written down,
like if it's your passion,
you'd be like, yeah,
like you get like some serial killers, and
really
they're
proud.
and they're like, they go to like prison or psychiatric hospitals and that, and they're like laughing. They're like, fuck yeah, I did it, and what?
It's publicly known that during this time, between the 60s and 70s, the US government were hot on mind control. MK Ultra, the whole thing was officially stopped by the US government in 1973. So during the time that Robert Kennedy was assassinated, it was still an ongoing thing, and it's true. While he was being interviewed extensively by everyone, he was actually hypnotised and interviewed. While he was under hypnosis, he told that he saw a woman in a polka dot dress who touched his shoulder, and then he immediately thought he was back in the firing range. That's when they believe he shot Robert Kennedy. So hours after Robert Kennedy was shot, Dr. Bryan, who was the US leader of hypnosis in America, he came out and said whoever had shot Robert Kennedy he believes was under hypnosis. This is before Robert Kennedy had died and before anyone knew who had actually shot him. Dr. Bryan was famous for working with the Boston Strangler. The Boston Strangler was the guy who went around strangling people in America. He was a serial killer. Boston Strangler's real last name was DeSalvo. Words DeSalvo were found written in Sirhan's diary over and over again, which is really odd that Dr. Bryan, world leader of hypnosis, who had worked with DeSalvo extensively years before, DeSalvo's last name was then found in this diary, and there was no other serial killer's names, just his, the one who had worked with Dr. Bryan, leader of the US hypnosis
That's
committee.
fucking weird. Are you convinced that like he was hypnotized or like led to do something?
I don't know. I just love knowing all the facts and then just being open-minded.
I want to talk to you about Project Rainbow.
Oh, it sounds so fun.
Okay, guys, Project Rainbow it involves covert experiments, disappearing objects, and possibly time travel, which was done by accident. So the experiment was taken to try an actual theory, which was put forward by Albert Einstein. Back when did Albert Einstein die?
My G.
So the experiment was taken forward by a group of people in 1943, and it was to make ships turn invisible to enemy radar in the war. But they do this with a cloaking device using gases and certain methods to reflect light to make it possible. So it reflects light. Do you know if you put mirrors all over your body and you stood still, you wouldn't be as visible because you'd be reflecting all the light around you. But somehow they ended up dematerializing the ship and teleporting it by accident. I'll get into that. It was a theory from Albert Einstein, which was called his unified field theory for gravitation and electricity. So the ship that they tested this on was the USS Eldridge. It was a ship that was equipped with all kinds of like electronical equipment. So there'd be like crazy magnetic generators on there. There'd be like giant coils. electronic generators just to make sure this ship and this experiment is just going to go perfectly to plan. This theory was tested twice, once in front of another ship and once at the Navy ship field back in, I think it was Boston. One of the crew members on another ship, they were watching from a distance and they wrote letters to basically explain to them what they had seen and like what was going on that day. And this is what he said in the letters. When the generators were turned on, green fog started to surround the ship, which was materialized by the equipment in the ship and covered until it was completely invisible. The fog eventually disappeared and so did the ship with it. So like the fog has covered it all, and I don't know what happened, but some scientific shit happened. Then they had orders to shut down the generators to stop the experiment. The fog gradually disappeared and the ship came back, revealing it to the human eye and on enemy radar, so it was you're able to see it on radar again. The generators were then, like, as the generators were shut down, the crew members who were on board of that ship, fucking crazy for going on that, you know, for being,
I would not go on
fuck that shit, man. They all felt very nauseous and sick. The science experiment people, what the fuck they're called, yeah?
Scientists.
Yeah, the scientists, the scientists who were working on the experiment did a few tweaks to try and like fix the problems of the nausea, like the people getting
Sick.
yeah, like sick and like they were vomiting and stuff. It felt really weird. They tried to tweak a few things to try and fix that problem. Yeah, like I said, after the tweaks were done on the ship to fix the problem, the ship and the generators were turned back on again to try the experiment again. This time, apparently, there was a massive flash of blue light, like a big bolt of energy released from the ship, and it completely vanished and ended back at the Navy field back in Philadelphia.
No, it didn't.
That's.
Is that true?
It's theory, isn't it? It's conspiracy theory.
It's like it just.
Exactly, like it just disappeared. So they went back to the Navy field in Philadelphia, and there were reports of some of the Navy members on board of the ship were actually infused to the metal on the ship. Some were missing as well. Like the experiment went completely wrong.
They could still be traveling around in time right now.
So instead of radar invisibility, they accidentally discovered teleportation.
I did that before.
Guys, so that theory, yeah, it's more interesting to people who've read about time travel and the speed of light and all that stuff.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'm really, really sorry if it was hard to keep up with mine.
I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Goodbye.
Hit the like button and subscribe, please. And let me know what else you want to see.